So I decided to re-record our videos today so that you have just a video with me talking about trig ratios and then applying trig ratios. And I'm also going to post one on the 45, 45, 90, and 30, 60, 90 worksheet so that we can make sure we're still moving on that. Now, this is on this foldable, and I'm on the inside. Now, what I wanted you to do was find the sine, cosine, and tangent of each of our angles. So I'm going to find the sine, cosine, and tangent of F, and then I'm going to do the same thing with E over here, but I'm going to do it in a different color. So I'm going to circle F, and remember, it's SOHCAHTOA. Sine is opposite hypotenuse, cosine is adjacent hypotenuse, and tangent is opposite divided by adjacent. And remember, the O and the A represent a leg, so it's opposite leg, adjacent leg. And if you can't figure out which one is the leg, the hypotenuse is across from your 90-degree angle. And then this is a leg, and this is a leg. Now the sine of F is opposite divided by hypotenuse. So the opposite of F is 10 divided by 2 root 29. Now we can't have a radical in because it's opposite divided by hypotenuse. We can't have a radical in the denominator, and we need to reduce. So this reduces to 5 root 29. And then you have to multiply the top and bottom by root 29 to get rid of it. This gives us 5 root 29 divided by 29. Because the square root of 29 times the square root of 29, the radical goes away and you're just left with the number. Now I'm going to do the cosine of F. And remember, at any point in this video, you stop it, you back it up, watch it, whatever you need to do. And I'm not going to do all of these in here, but I'm going to do some so that we're practicing our trig ratios in F, because you're going to have a quiz soon. I'm probably going to move it back to Friday. Now our cosine of F is the leg adjacent to it divided by hypotenuse. The leg adjacent is 4. The hypotenuse is 2 root 29. Now 4 divided by 2 is 2. And then we can't have a radical in the denominator, so we have to multiply the top and bottom times root 29. Now remember, when you multiply root 29 times root 29, the radical goes away, and you're just, ooh, Blair. And you're just left with the number. So the denominator should be 29 without a radical. I just got excited. And on top is 2 root 29. And this should be 29, but since that whiteout was drying, I'm going to give it a minute to dry. Now the tangent of F is opposite divided by adjacent. So you do the opposite leg, which is 10, divided by the adjacent leg, and that reduces to 5 halves. Alright, now I'm going to do the sine, cosine, and tangent of E. I'm going to write it on a separate piece of paper just because I wrote too big and am out of room. So E, I'm going to do it in purple, it's opposite of E divided by hypotenuse. So the opposite of E is 4 divided by 2 root 29. 4 divided by 2 is 2. We have to get rid of that radical. And then we're left with 2 root 29 divided by 29. And the way you know you did it right is the sine of E and the cosine of F are supposed to be the same thing. Now I'm going to do the cosine of E. Now the cosine of E is adjacent to this angle and the hypotenuse. So the adjacent leg is 10, and then the hypotenuse is 2 root 29. So you have 10 divided by 2 root 29. 10 divided by 2 is 5. We have to get rid of the radical. And remember, when you multiply the same radical by itself, the radical goes away and you're left with a number. And these two should be the same. The cosine of E and the sine of F should be the same thing. Now we're going to do the tangent of E. Now the tangent of E is opposite divided by adjacent, so the opposite leg is 4 divided by 10. 4 divided by 10 is 2/5, which is the reciprocal of this one, which is perfect. Alright, now I'm going to work out this one. We're going to do one more like this, and then we're going to do one that doesn't have a radical in it. Probably this one right here. Alright, so I'm going to do the sine of P, the cosine of P, and the tangent of P. And then we're going to do the same thing for Q. So P, the sine of P is opposite divided by hypotenuse. It's the opposite leg, which is 4 root 10 divided by 14. Now we need to reduce our fraction. What goes into both 4 and 14? 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. We leave our root 10, and 14 divided by 2 is 7. Ta-da! And remember, we don't divide it by the radical, or we don't do anything with the radical because it's under the radical. If we had another radical, then we could combine, but we don't, so we can't. Alright, now let's do cosine of P. Cosine of P is the leg adjacent to it, right next to it, and the hypotenuse. So the leg adjacent to P is 6. It's 6 divided by 14, which reduces to 3/7. The tangent of P is opposite divided by adjacent. So that's 4 root 10 divided by 6. We reduce the 4/6, which reduces to 2/3. So it's 2 root 10 divided by 3. Now I'm going to do the cosine, sine, and tangent of Q. So the sine of Q is, this one is Q, so it's opposite divided by hypotenuse. So that's 6/14, which reduces to 3/7. And remember, the sine of Q and the cosine of P should be the same thing. We did it right. Now I'm going to find the cosine of Q. The cosine of Q is adjacent divided by hypotenuse. So that's 4 root 10 divided by 14. 4 divided by 14 reduces to 2/7, so that's 2 root 10 divided by 7. And the cosine of Q and sine of P should be the same thing. And finally, tangent. Tangent of Q. The tangent of Q is opposite divided by adjacent, so opposite of Q is 6 divided by 4 root 10. And this one we're going to have to do some magic with. So this reduces to 3/2 root 10. But we have to get rid of this root 10. So we're going to multiply the top and the bottom by root 10, and I'm going to come down here and finish working it out. So you get 3 root 10 because we can't combine those. And we know that root 10 times root 10 becomes 10. But we have a 2 here. So now we're going to take this 10 and we're going to multiply it by 2 and we get 20. Ta-da! Now we're going to do one more without all the crazy radicals. If you need to pause it here, pause it there. Open this up. We're going to do this problem right here. And I'm only going to do it for P, and you guys can do Q or check your work without me. So the sine of P is opposite divided by hypotenuse. So the opposite of P is 15 divided by 17. We don't have to reduce anything. We don't have to do anything. This is a nice, easy problem. The cosine of P is what's adjacent to P, so it's this leg that's touching it, divided by hypotenuse. So that's 8 divided by 17. And finally, the tangent of P is opposite divided by adjacent. So it's leg divided by leg. That's 15 divided by 8. That's it for our trig ratios. I'm going to post this as a video separately so you can review it. And then I'm going to do one where we apply trig ratios using what we did today. I'm going to redo our foldables for us one at a time. And then I'm also going to add tangent in there. Okay? Make sure you watch both.